Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. When the truth finally broke through the walls of silence, it shattered Victoria Newman's world like a pane of glass under the weight of betrayal. Holden's secret, his cruel, gut-wrenching betrayal, wasn't just a scandal waiting to explode. It was a knife driven into the very heart of her family. Victoria had always prided herself on her intuition. She'd seen deception, she'd lived through it, and she'd been burned by men who claimed to love her before. But this time, it wasn't just about her own heartbreak, it was about her daughter, Claire, who had trusted Holden completely. And when Victoria looked into Holden's eyes, saw the flicker of guilt he couldn't hide, and finally learned the whole truth, she spoke 6 words that would haunt him forever. "You broke my daughter's soul, Holden." Those words, soft yet sharp as razors, echoed through the Newman mansion like a ghost that refused to rest. Holden stood there, his lips trembling, his excuses forming and dying before they could escape. He tried to reach for her, but Victoria took a step back, her expression carved from ice. The warmth that had once filled her home was gone, replaced by a cold so deep that even the sunlight filtering through the drapes couldn't soften it. She wasn't just angry, she was devastated. Not only because Holden had cheated, but because he had done so with someone Claire had once considered a friend. It was betrayal layered upon betrayal, and Victoria could hardly process the avalanche of emotions crashing inside her. For days, whispers had been circulating. Nick had hinted that something was off with Holden's behavior. Even Nikki had cautioned her daughter to keep a watchful eye. Men who charm too easily, Victoria, usually have something to hide. But Victoria had dismissed it. She wanted to believe that Holden was different, that he was genuine, that he loved Claire for the incredible young woman she'd become, not because of her last name or her legacy. Now, standing in the wreckage of that illusion, Victoria's protective instincts roared to life. The confrontation unfolded in the Grand Phoenix's private lounge, a place Holden had chosen for what he called an honest conversation. He didn't expect Victoria to arrive early, nor did he realize that she'd overheard enough to piece the truth together before he even opened his mouth. He was meeting the woman he'd cheated with, a brunette from one of Newman Media's marketing teams, younger, naive, and clearly infatuated. When Victoria entered the room, the girl fled, leaving Holden to face the storm alone. "Don't even try to explain," Victoria said coldly, crossing her arms. Her voice was calm, but the fury beneath it was unmistakable. "I've heard enough lies in my life to recognize one before it's even spoken." Holden's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked small, so small, for a man who had once carried himself like he could conquer the world. "She doesn't know yet, does she?" Victoria asked, her tone low and dangerous. "Claire. She still thinks you love her. She's at home planning your future while you're out here destroying it." Holden tried to speak, his voice breaking. "Victoria, it was a mistake." "No," she cut him off sharply, her eyes narrowing. "A mistake is spilling coffee on someone. A mistake is missing an anniversary. You made a choice. You chose to betray her." Her voice quivered for a moment, betraying the storm of emotions inside her. She turned away, gripping the edge of the table to steady herself. She finally started trusting again after everything, after years of lies, after the kidnapping, after losing faith in everyone she loved. "And you did this?" Holden's guilt was palpable. "I never meant to hurt her," he whispered, but Victoria spun around, her glare slicing through him. "Don't you dare say that to me," she seethed. "You didn't just hurt her, Holden, you broke her spirit." Then came those 6 devastating words, trembling but deliberate, "You broke my daughter's soul, Holden." Silence followed. The kind that burns your ears and steals your breath. Holden's chest heaved as he tried to find something, anything, to say. But there was nothing. Nothing that could make up for what he'd done. Victoria's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Her mind flashed back to when she first met Holden. She'd been cautious then, skeptical of anyone getting too close to Claire. But Holden had been persistent, patient, kind, attentive. He'd made Claire laugh again after years of pain. Victoria had even dared to believe he might be the one. But now that belief felt like poison. Every word he'd ever spoken sounded hollow in her memory. She turned her back on him, staring out the window as the city buzzed below. "Do you have any idea what she's been through?" she whispered. "The therapy, the nightmares, the fear that she's never good enough? You made her believe she was finally safe." Her voice broke, but she pushed on. "And you ripped that away." Holden took a hesitant step forward, but Victoria's voice stopped him cold. "Don't come near me," she warned. "You don't deserve even an inch of her forgiveness, or mine." It wasn't just fury fueling Victoria, it was the fierce love of a mother who'd seen her child fight too hard for happiness to lose it to a man's selfish weakness. Every instinct she had screamed to protect Claire from more pain, even if it meant destroying Holden's reputation, his career, and his place in their lives. Word spread fast in Genoa City. By the next morning, the Newman office halls were buzzing. Phyllis had overheard a fragment of the confrontation, and within hours, gossip spread through the Grand Phoenix like wildfire. "Did you hear? Holden cheated on Claire Newman. Victoria's ready to annihilate him," whispered one assistant to another. Back at Newman Enterprises, Victoria sat in her office, staring at a framed photo of Claire. It was taken not long ago, mother and daughter smiling in the Newman Ranch gardens, sunlight glinting in their hair. She reached out, tracing Claire's face with her fingertip, and her chest ached. She knew the moment she told Claire, the light in that smile would dim. That night, Victoria went to the ranch. The air was heavy with autumn chill. She found Claire sitting on the patio, sipping tea, her face peaceful, so unaware of the heartbreak heading her way. For a moment, Victoria considered not telling her, not yet. Maybe she could fix it quietly. But then she remembered Holden's expression, the cowardice in his eyes, and she knew silence would only make it worse. "Mom?" Claire asked softly, sensing something was wrong. "You look pale." Victoria's lips parted, but the words refused to come. She sat beside her daughter, the sound of the wind rustling through the trees surrounding them. "Sweetheart," she began gently, "there's something I need to tell you." And as the truth spilled out, Claire's face transformed from confusion to disbelief, then to devastation. Tears welled in her eyes as she shook her head. "No, no, he wouldn't. Holden loves me." Victoria reached for her hand, but Claire pulled away, collapsing into sobs. "Why does this keep happening to me? Why does everyone I love lie to me?" Victoria's heart broke all over again. She wanted to hold her daughter, to take the pain away, but Claire couldn't bear to be touched. "I trusted him," Claire screamed, her voice cracking. "I let my guard down for once, and he used me." Victoria fought back her own tears. "You didn't do anything wrong, Claire. This is on him." But Claire was inconsolable. She ran inside, slamming the door, leaving Victoria outside in the cold night, staring up at the stars, wondering how much more her family could take. In the days that followed, Holden tried to reach out. He sent texts, left voicemails, begged to explain. But Victoria intercepted every message. She refused to let him manipulate her daughter again. When he showed up at the ranch one afternoon, Victoria met him at the gate. "You need to leave," she said firmly. "Please, just 1 minute," he begged. "I love her. I made a mistake, but I can fix this." "Fix this?" Victoria repeated, incredulous. "You think this is something you can fix? You broke her heart, Holden. You broke her trust. You don't get to come back from that." Holden's voice trembled. "I'll wait as long as it takes." Victoria shook her head. "You don't understand. There's no waiting. There's no forgiveness. You lost her the moment you decided someone else was worth the risk." He looked crushed, his eyes glistening with regret. But Victoria didn't flinch. "If you care about her at all," she said quietly, "you'll stay away. Let her heal." And with that, she turned and walked away, her posture straight, her heart aching but resolute. Holden stood frozen, realizing that the 6 words she'd spoken days earlier weren't just anger, they were prophecy. He had broken Claire's soul, and in doing so, he'd lost everything. Weeks later, as Claire tried to rebuild her life, Victoria remained her constant support. Every night, she sat with her daughter, offering quiet comfort and gentle reminders that love, real love, doesn't destroy. Slowly, Claire began to find her footing again, channeling her pain into purpose. She started volunteering, spending more time with family, avoiding reminders of Holden altogether. Victoria, however, carried her own private torment. She wondered if she had missed the signs, if she had failed to protect her daughter soon enough. But deep down, she knew this wasn't her failure, it was Holden's. And she would make sure the world remembered that. When Holden eventually tried to transfer to a new company in town, Victoria used her power to block it. "Not in this city," she told her assistant. "Not anywhere near my daughter." It wasn't revenge, it was protection. And though Victoria knew her actions would be seen as ruthless, she didn't care. Mothers weren't meant to be saints. They were meant to be shields. Months later, when Holden finally left Genoa City, he left behind more than just a ruined reputation. He left behind the memory of a woman whose words had cut through his arrogance and forced him to face his reflection. "You broke my daughter's soul, Holden." Those 6 words stayed with him, echoing in his dreams, replaying in his regrets, reminding him that sometimes, the most painful wounds aren't the ones you can see. And as Victoria watched Claire smile again one morning, tentative but real, she whispered to herself, "We're going to be okay." But somewhere deep down, she also knew, neither of them would ever forget the man who taught them what betrayal truly meant. The days following Victoria's revelation blurred into a haze of tears, sleepless nights, and echoing questions that wouldn't stop tormenting Claire's mind. Every sound, every memory, every whispered conversation from her mother replayed itself like a cruel loop, refusing to let her rest. Holden's betrayal wasn't just a wound, it was an earthquake that fractured her sense of self. He hadn't just cheated on her, he had taken the part of her that still believed in goodness, in trust, and set it on fire. And as much as she tried to deny it, the embers of that fire still burned inside her chest, fueling both her pain and her need for closure. Victoria had done her best to shield Claire from the worst of the fallout. She had silenced the gossip, kept Holden away, and acted as the fierce guardian she'd always been. But deep down, Victoria knew her daughter would eventually need to face him, not for reconciliation, but for release. Claire couldn't heal while Holden's shadow still lingered over her thoughts. It was a Friday afternoon when Claire finally made the decision. She sat in her room at the Newman ranch, staring at the folded photograph she kept in her nightstand, one of her and Holden at the lake house, their smiles effortless and bright. She tore it in half, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Then she reached for her phone. Her hands trembled as she typed the message. "Claire, meet me at Chancellor Park. One last time." Holden's reply came almost immediately. "Holden, I'll be there." Victoria noticed the tension in her daughter's face when she descended the staircase, car keys in hand. "Claire," she said softly, "where are you going?" Claire hesitated. "I need to see him." Victoria's heart clenched. "Sweetheart, you don't owe him anything." "I know," Claire said, her eyes glistening but determined. "This isn't for him. It's for me." Victoria wanted to protest, but she saw the conviction in Claire's expression, the same steel she'd seen in herself years ago when she faced her own betrayals. She nodded slowly. "Then make sure he understands exactly what he's lost." Claire gave a faint, bittersweet smile. "Oh, I will." The sun was dipping low when Holden arrived at Chancellor Park. The golden light filtered through the trees, painting the world in soft amber tones that made everything look deceptively peaceful. He spotted Claire standing near the fountain, her posture rigid, her hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. For a moment, he hesitated, his heart pounding. She looked so composed, so unlike the woman he'd left broken. "Claire," he breathed, stepping closer. She turned her gaze on him, and Holden flinched. Her eyes, once warm, filled with affection, were now cold, like glass that had been frozen over. "You came," she said simply. "I wasn't sure you'd ever want to see me again," he admitted. "I didn't," she replied, her tone even. "But I needed to look at you one more time. To see if the person I loved was ever really there." Holden's throat tightened. He was. He still is. "No," Claire said, shaking her head. "He never existed. He was a lie I told myself because I wanted to believe in something pure." Holden's voice faltered. "Claire, please. Don't," she interrupted sharply. "Don't start with apologies or excuses. I've heard enough lies to last me a lifetime. My mother tried to spare me, but I needed to hear it from you." She took a deep breath, her composure trembling but unbroken. "How long, Holden? How long were you seeing her behind my back?" Holden looked away, shame etched into every line of his face. "It wasn't like that. Answer me." Claire snapped, her voice cutting through the quiet park. He flinched. "A few months." The words hit her like a blow. She staggered back a step, her hand trembling as she brushed at her tears. "A few months," she repeated hollowly. "You were lying to me for months while holding me every night, while telling me you loved me." Holden's eyes filled with regret. "I did love you. I still do." Claire laughed bitterly, a sound filled with pain. "Love? You don't even know what that word means. Love doesn't humiliate. Love doesn't crawl into someone else's bed when things get hard. Love doesn't destroy the person who trusted you most." He stepped forward, desperation flickering in his voice. "It was a mistake. I was lost, I felt like we were drifting apart." "Stop," she cried. "Don't you dare blame this on me. You had every chance to be honest, Holden. You could have walked away instead of making me believe we still had a future." Holden's shoulders slumped. "I didn't want to lose you." Claire's voice cracked, soft but deadly. "You lost me the moment you lied." The fountain behind them gurgled quietly, its rhythm the only sound in the heavy silence that followed. Claire looked up at him, her tears finally spilling over. "Do you know what it feels like to finally trust someone after years of pain, only for them to prove that your worst fears were right?" Holden swallowed hard. "I didn't want to hurt you." "Then why did you?" she demanded. "You saw what I'd been through. You knew how hard it was for me to open up. And you took that vulnerability and crushed it." Her voice wavered, but she refused to break. "My mother told me you weren't worth it. She warned me that you were too smooth, too good to be true. I defended you, Holden. I stood up for you. I made excuses for you when she doubted you, and you made me look like a fool." Holden's tears began to fall then, but Claire was unmoved. "Don't cry," she said icily. "You don't get to cry. You get to live with what you did. You get to wake up every morning knowing that you destroyed the one person who believed in you." Her words struck with precision, cutting deeper than any slap could have. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but strong. "You didn't just cheat on me, you made me doubt myself. You made me question if I wasn't enough, if I did something wrong. But now I realize, the only thing wrong in this story was you." Holden's face crumpled. "Claire, please. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." She looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, "You don't have that long. You don't get a lifetime with me. You already wasted it." For a brief moment, she thought she might collapse. Every part of her wanted to scream, to hit him, to cry until there was nothing left. But she wouldn't give him that satisfaction. She straightened her spine, lifting her chin. "You know what the worst part is?" she asked quietly. "I still wake up some mornings and miss you. I still catch myself wanting to tell you things. And then I remember who you really are." Holden's voice broke. "I never stopped loving you." Claire shook her head slowly. "No. You stopped the moment you touched her. That was the end." The moment she realized there was no more to say. She looked at him one last time, memorizing the face of the man who had broken her heart, and then she turned away. "Goodbye, Holden," she whispered. "Don't follow me." And she walked away, her step steady, her tears silent, her resolve absolute. Holden stood frozen, watching her disappear down the path, knowing he had just witnessed the final chapter of their love story. When Claire returned to the Newman ranch, Victoria was waiting in the living room, pacing. The moment she saw her daughter, she rushed forward, eyes searching Claire's face. "Are you okay?" Claire nodded faintly. "I'm better now." Victoria took her hand gently. "Did you get what you needed?" Claire hesitated. "I did. I told him the truth. I told him that he doesn't get to break me anymore." Pride and sorrow mingled in Victoria's expression. "That's my girl." Claire exhaled shakily, sinking onto the couch. "You were right about him. I wanted so badly to believe he was different." Victoria sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We all want to believe the best in people, Claire. But sometimes, love blinds us to what's real." Claire leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "He said he loved me." Victoria sighed softly. "Men like that always do. But love isn't about words, it's about actions." And his actions proved everything. For the first time in days, Claire let herself cry freely. Not the shattered sobs of betrayal, but the release of someone who'd finally faced their pain and survived it. Victoria held her close, whispering, "You'll be okay. I promise."